How's it going, everyone? Today I'm going to tie for you my Emperor. This is my 9-inch Muskie. I got hit by a striper, skin's falling off. This is my Muskie fly that I tie for Blue Water Lake, New Mexico. Also use some of these for stripers. Big bass eat them. Any big game fish is going to eat them. Doesn't even just have to be big old fish. I've had 3-pound largemouth take these, but this is the second generation. This is the second version of this. So the first one I tied, I think I've actually got one right here. Sparse, which I like the sparse material, but it was sparse. I had 2 4-aught partridge Predator X hooks on there. This on average came out to about 7.5, sometimes 8 inches if you got some of the very tailing. Now this one was made for a wave tail, so it's got the wave tail. Can't even see that. It's got the wave tail attachment in here. There we go. So you can see that. It's got the wave tail attachment. Some of the other versions I have, like Schlappen or Chinese saddle hackles. This one I've got feathers in there. So how this is tied, I have a 3-brush system for this. I have the tailing brush, I have a mid brush, and then I have the main head brush. This also utilizes my new connection with the wire core as opposed to like beadlawn or another wire. So the wire that I use for this is a 108-pound single strand mail-in wire. I don't have the packaging because I think I threw it away or it's being used somewhere else. But you don't have to do the 108. I just did that because, one, I was going for stripers and I didn't want to have to worry. Secondly, Muskie, Pike, they can mess your stuff up really quickly. So I already went over how to do this in an Instagram in one of my stories. I'll go over it again while I'm here. But this is the tying tutorial for that fly, for my Emperor. Losing things everywhere. So kind of the prep stage for this is you're going to need, 6 to 8 inches of this wire. So I've got roughly 6 or 7 inch strand of wire right there. Again, this is single strand wire. This is like a titanium wire. So you can bend it, you can kink it, you can curl it. You can also do the haywire twist with this. We're going to utilize that here in a moment. Also, I'm going to put the camera here to the narrow view so it focuses on this. Here in a moment, I just want to get this step out of the way because it requires a lot of what I'm doing. You need to have a better idea of what I'm doing. So generally what I do is, this is just your standard Chinese saddle hackles. Nothing's fancy, nothing special about them. But I want to get right to the end of my vise here is where I want to get that tail fiber. And I've already pre-done 2 of them. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to, again, measure off where I want. So I've got, just before the barb, actually I could even probably put that right, yeah, so just where the barb starts, I know it's hard to see, but right where the barb starts on this Ahrex, got the hook right here. So this is the PR 320 Predator Stinger. The back hook is a 4-aught, front hook is a 6-aught. So just take this fluorot or any other hook that you're using. I prefer these hooks because they are strong, they're stout. This isn't the light predator, this is the barbed predator hook. And I really love the hookup quality of these stinger hooks, especially this being a 4-aught. Again, remember I said these were 4-aughts, both of them. And they did pretty good. But again, I'm going to line that back up with the back here. I'm going to cut just a little bit in front of where my thumbs are. So thumb, finger back here, cut a little bit forward. Keep the fluff. Keep the fluff on here. You're going to want the fluff. Same thing with the second hook, or the second feather, line up the tips. I prefer having aligned tips because they taper so nicely already. You don't really need to have a dual kind of taper thing going on. But I'm going to pair up the feathers. I'm going to cut them in the same spot. And then with a debarbing tool or some other flat pliers, you're going to come in and make this flat. So the stems on these, on the hackles, it goes from flat and then curves as it goes up. So up here it's kind of more of that rounded, where down here it's actually flat where it'll lay flush against the fly. So just go on in here and flatten a good portion of this. Be careful which pliers you grab, however. I have another pair of what I thought were pliers. They're flush cutters. And from the back side they look like kind of pliers. And I've just completely nicked off a good inch of this feather before. So a couple reasons why I keep the fluff in here. First reason is it helps as I'm tying to give it more of a base. It gives more for the thread to bite down on. So when I tie it, it's right where I want it. Gonna go ahead and do that with the second one here. Same thing. Take the pliers, flat nose pliers, and flatten that barb the best that I can. Again, Andreas Anderson does this. He keeps the fluff on. I know Gunner likes to flatten it. So I've taken the best of both worlds for that. And I will say it absolutely comes in a huge asset when you're trying to make everything consistent and nice and neat. Because fish don't care. Fish don't care if it's Chinese saddle hackle or Schlappen or, you know, dog hair. But to get the eye of other fishermen, you know, having everything aesthetically nice helps out. Alright, so about a half inch at the end here. Second step is going to be taking white bucktail. You're going to take the tip fibers, because these are the ones that have the less air in them. They're more rigid, because what I want to do is I want to create, if you have a faux bucktail, that works amazingly well for this as well. But the idea that you want is you want to create a base on the back here so that the feathers don't flare. You want them to stay rigid and create, because the whole purpose of this, you can't really see them too much in the fly itself. And I mean, the coloring and whatnot, you can't even see the coloring too much of them anyways. But the idea is you need something to help create the bulk for the back of the fly. Otherwise you're just going to have a hollow section as is there. There's no feathers, so that it's hollow. Even when you strip it down, see how there's that hollow section in there. Again, I did that for a wave tail, but when you're actually putting material on, the feathers help give it the bulk, and they hold everything together much more smoothly. And then as you work your way up, you know, the brushes are going to do work, and they're going to do the rest of the bulk and the placement. So again, we don't want these to move so much because the big fly fiber in the brush is going to do most of the movement. I just need it as a stabilizer. And as a bulk filler. So go ahead and grab yourself there's a lot of small ones in there. Go ahead and grab a fairly decent chunk of feathers. This is bucktail, not feathers. Guys, just work with me. It's been a long day. Okay. If you need to, go ahead and do any of your, your normal stacking procedures that you want, like tapping it on a table or pushing the buttons against your hand, whatnot. You're gonna cut them off anyways here in a moment. I just like to make them as flush as possible, and then I'll come in and just nick off the last little bits there. So again, like I said, what you want to do is create a veil to help just keep these in place, because otherwise they're going to get wrapped around the hook. They're going to, it doesn't become the best of shows. The Iowa State crap show, as Deadpool would put it. So I clean them off, but as you can see, I'm going to cut off probably another ½ inch here, because I don't need the full length. So, like I said, something like faux bucktail is nice here, and utilizing some of those longer fibers won't hurt at all, because you'll have that extra bulk and you'll have that extra stiffness and rigidity in the back here. But I am using this, like I said, to help keep this all stable here, so that way they don't move around a whole lot. And don't worry if you start losing some fibers and hairs, or if they butt up too much like that. See, and like I said, when I do the next phases of this, I'm gonna get the narrow version for the camera so you can actually see what I'm doing. And you will have to come through here and clean up. I mean, it's bucktail, it's not a foolproof, bulletproof thing. You're going to have to work around. You're going to have to get those clumps and bunches where you need them. I'm not too concerned with it getting on the bottom so much, because I do want to have that open hook shank here. But there we go. Now they're tamed down, but you still have the tips of them. So the tips are still going to be able to, do what they want. And then just go in here and clip this off. But the tailing fibers are still going to be able to do what they want. They're going to have movement. I mean, they're feathers. It's just like a feathered treble hook. They have so much motion and movement. A lot of my hits, whether it's from bass or from muskie, come on the paws. And of course, not only predators eat on the paws, but there's also everything to this fly. There's movement everywhere. Alright, clean that up. 2 wraps here to hold that in place. Have that with super glue. Now, super glue isn't bulletproof. It's helpful, it's not bulletproof, but what it will do It's just help keep all of this from falling out. That's what I want, is I'm worried about the thread wraps. I need the thread wraps to be secured, but I also don't want to lose any of this material. So the more bound it is, the better off. Less fibers you lose. Okay, I'm going to zoom in now so you can see what the rest of the process is. So give me a moment. Okay. Zoomed in here. I know we're going to see a lot more. There we go. It's a little better. Don't mind me, I'm just being crazy. I also would like for the camera to focus on the fly and not my chest, but whatever. You get the gist of it. So the last step that I did was I just put super glue on the wraps here. It's pretty much tacky, dry, done. So how the brushes work. I mentioned earlier that I have a 3-brush system. This isn't the brush. I've already pre-done the brush. This was a brush that I was supposed to use for this fly, then ended up making another one on accident. But this one's also missing some of the longer flash that I need. But 3-brush system. So 2 brushes. As you can see, there's the midsection. This back section here, this is custom blend of 2-inch SF fibers, flash in the middle, flashy part. I mean that's all you can see is flash. Big fly fiber, which gives you that extra length. Midsection here, which is going to go on the articulation shank. Same process, but this is 3-inch for the. Man, this thing does not want to focus at all. 3-inch SF fibers, same length, big fly. So I use the big fly. I use big fly at full length at all times. The different placement in the brush is what helps with the length. So for here, I have the big fly fiber ending, at least the butt sections, you know, I'll put it about midway in the SF. And then that's what gets you the first brush. Again, SF is for the filler, big fly is for the length, also to help bridge the 2 sections together, and of course because I've got the lighting on this perfectly, all the flash. This combo is going to be red and white. So for the next brush, different, is the full 9-inch length. But I've also got the red head for this, because like I said, this is going to be the red and white version red head. There we go. So not too much different with this brush. You're still going to do the same. I don't know if you can see, but I've got Flash of Boo in this one, which is also what I'm going to be using on this brush. Is I've got Flash of Boo in there. Yeah, you can see some of the Flash of Boo. Full 9-inch length, and this is going on the 6/0 hook. This entire brush is going on the 6/0 hook. Reason for that is I need the most bulk in that hook. That's the body, that's the head. That needs to be the thickest part. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come on in. I'm going to trim this a little bit. So, now that just run. What else? At least you can see what I'm doing. Focus. Nope, doesn't want to focus. Okay, so how I'm going to tie this in, I'm not going to tie this in on top and then just blah blah whatever. I'm going to do like but most people tie in the hackle feathers to actually hackle it forward. I'm going to come in on the bottom and I'm going to do the figure 8 to lash it in place, 2 in front, 2 behind, and then to help secure this down, I'm going to take the wire, I'm going to wrap it down. Be careful when you're wrapping over the wire because you will cut your thread. Even though that this is 100 GSP, 100 denier GSP, you will still break your thread. Okay, and then, somewhere right up in here. Of course, I've got the camera in the way. Just pull that up out of the way. I do not suggest trying to hold this with your fingers because you will completely kill your fingers. You do want a pair of pliers, hackle pliers, whatever, to grab the wire on the back end. So all I'm doing is I'm just going to grab the wire, and I leave these long for a reason for this. I leave these wire tag ends long for a reason, because I'm going to grab it. Where's the camera? I'm going to grab it, and then I'm going to actually bend that over a couple times over the hackle pliers so I don't have the chance of it pulling out. Then I'm going to hold that with a death grip. Crane all this to one side. And start wrapping. Okay. Now that we've got that done, be careful with the flush cutter right there because you will cut your thread, as I have done a few times. So what I did was open spiral wraps because this is the back hook. We don't want a lot of weight and resistance back here because we're trying to get it to be light and airy so it flows. You know, you can get that kick, that side to side, that kick. Oh, Mr. Wackety Whack. Trying to make a video, Mr. Wackety Whack, come on. I have a red-headed woodpecker that finds it funny at 6 in the morning to start banging on the sill. Okay, don't worry about having a little bit of a gap here. This is absolutely fine. Because for this one, I am using lateral scale. God, I love the positioning for this camera with the window. Everything shines and sparkles. Okay, that was the game moment for the day. Alright. So, what I do for this... Come on, scissors, stop running away from me. So, I take it at full length. I have no idea where the camera is. Take it full length, right from the hank. I only take one strand. One strand. Reason for that is because I'm going to double it, cut it in half. So now I've got 2 strands. And I'm going to do 70-30 and tie them in. So it's okay to have a little bit, especially on the back here. This is all going to be covered, so it's not, you know, nothing's going to very easily see this. There we go. So whenever you do this, actually one on this side, because of how the thread works when you lay it over, you're going to want the 30% side on the back towards, so I don't know how well you can see that, 30% going off in the back and then the other 70 going off in the front. Or vice versa, however you wish to do that. Because when you tie this in, you're going to flip-flop. So now I've got the 30% going forward and the other 70% going off the back here. And just go ahead and do a couple lashing wraps. Boom. Doesn't matter if they're loose and flowy, whatnot, because they're just going to be covered up on the next step. Same thing. About 30-70. I mean, it doesn't matter. I just try to do 30-70 because I think it looks better. Okay. Check to make sure that they're even. They pretty much are even. And this is now the back section for the fly. Middle section. Ow. Yeah, be careful, guys. I did that yesterday at the lake. The monofilament will cut right through if you're not aware or ready. And then finish it off with super glue. I do kind of like to soak that. Okay. So while this is drying and still on the stand, you're going to want to go get yourself an articulation shank. I think this is the 35 millimeter. This is the thinner one, which honestly I have no problems with it. But if you are concerned about maybe your fish are a little bit stronger, you can definitely pick yourself up the Blaine Chocolates Big Game shanks. These particular ones are 28 millimeters, so they're shorter, but much thicker wires. Much more stout. Even the connections on these are better. But I'm not too concerned about that because all this is just it's a connection. There's no weight on this particular one except for the rear back here. And we're going to take care of that with this next step. So for the next process here, it's exactly the same. Go ahead and get your hook holder, hold that in place. There we go. Lost that. So you're going to need to tie this section down back in here. That will help with, not letting it slip. But you also want to tie down the loop back here so it's the smallest opening possible, so that lure, that back hook, has the smallest amount of room to move. I'm not too concerned with leaving like open thread wraps there. Same thing. Gonna put glue on the back here because these wraps are going to be a little bit more exposed, especially with teeth coming in the back. So I like to hit this whole thing and just help keep those thread wraps from getting hit by teeth. Because that's the main purpose for this fly. They work for bass, they work for muskie, pike, walleye. Actually have the 9-inch Goldilocks that the walleye hit out of Lake Mary. Not with me, it's in my truck. But everything, absolutely everything will eat this fly. And like I said, you don't even need big fish. You just need the right fish. So, same thing, just rinse and repeat. This is the 3-inch brush now. The 3-inch core. I'm going to go through there and palmer it the same way. Now, with this one, I'm going to be doing open wraps for a majority of it. And then if I need to, up in the front, I'll go ahead and start putting them a little bit closer. Same thing with that wire that's sticking up right there. All I'm going to do, now that I've got the thread secured, I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to tie it down. Ooh, that just about ripped my thread off. And then just go through, get that little cut end off, secure that. Now, something you may have to do with some of these, be careful of it. A lot of times on articulation shanks, I've seen this actually quite a bit. The eyes aren't really secured. Let's put that in the black section. So the connections aren't really secure, so go ahead and just do a lot of thread wraps to help kind of close that gap. And like I said, same thing. Open spiral wraps. For about the first half of it. And then towards the front, because this is shorter than the actual hook shank. So it's going to be, do be careful of the flash from the back end, it may get caught. And I'm going to try to fast forward the previous section of me doing this. But it's not critical and it's not recommended, or it's not required, but I would recommend trying to preen all of this out before trying to clean it. It'll save you another minute, save you material as well. How are you stuck under the thread? But what I mean by that is just preening it out, just like I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of maintenance with it now to try to help later on from doing a lot more cleaning and preening and just trying to get all the trapped fibers out, because the last thing you want is trapped fibers. A lot of times trapped fibers can end up as broken fibers if they get too much stress, as opposed to maybe just pulling out. But again, same thing with this. It's okay if you have an opening in the front for the eye, because we're going to put more lateral scale on there. Something that comes in really handy too is having a pedestal, or I'm sorry, a C-clamp style vise for this, as opposed to a pedestal. I have moved vices and I've lifted them with these brushes, especially for this part right here, because this requires a lot of tension. So what I'm going to do here, sorry that I'm a lot of hands, is I'm going to go behind it once. I'm going to try to keep tension twice. Again, still keeping tension. And you can see the shank moving. Then I'm going to do wraps in the front to help hold that tension. And move it to the back again. Tie it down. And then this is when you're going to come in. Oh God, I'm going to sharpen those. Clamp it. And then push it down. Come through again. Preen it out. Now this, for for, at least I know for my flies for this step is critical, is having the materials intertwine with each other. It helps to give you that more flowing, instead of just stair steps where you have a chunk and then a chunk and then a chunk. You have more of a flow of materials just laying not only into each other, but then you also have where they're, can't really see it too well, but you have interlocking fibers, but then you also have the different layers. Same thing. Lateral scales. And this is the opal pearl. I think that's this color. I threw away the box, otherwise I would tell you. But I had the opal pearl in regular Flashaboo. Oh my god. That is the, and actually that, I believe this was the last fly that I used that with. That's what all this extra flash is. What I love about the opal pearls is they take on the color of whatever's surrounding them. So on the pink Emperor, I have the lateral scales on there. And even if it's hard to detect, which I've got it right there. Yeah, you can see it right there. But it blends in so well. And then for the full length of the fly, you have kind of that really nice underlining flash. But it also helps imitate now the actual lateral scale of the fish. I absolutely love this stuff. I also have it in the black opal or black pearl. I forget what the color is called. And I use that on my darker flies. So like the blacks, the browns. And the same thing with this. I'm going to do the 70-30 or roughly 70-30-ish. Again, check just to make sure that they're even. Now, these ones won't necessarily line up perfectly with the rear flash, but I mean, again, fish isn't going to really look at that and go, oh, those lateral lines aren't fitting, they don't match, it's not real. They don't care. They're going to see the flash and they're going to go absolutely crazy for it. Look at the sun beaming down on me now. And again, a lot of this doesn't really matter for these other connections. Ah, I'm running out of thread. I think I have more on the way. Doesn't really matter so much if the connections don't, or the thread and the connections isn't covered, or if it's, I mean, make it clean, but you don't necessarily need to be subtle with it. I have some of my flies that have some gnarly heads, and fish don't care. So I'm going to go ahead. Come on. There we go. As long as I don't super glue myself. This is the back half. As you can see, it is sparkly as crap. That is the point. Honestly, if you wanted to, you could even just put a head on this and fish it. And I do that for some of my bass flies, my smaller bass flies. I'll do a 2/0 universal predator in the back, and then just the shank in the front. It's got good movement already. It flows. I mean, when you look at that, that's already like a baitfish pattern right there. You have the teardrop. You've got, again, the feathers in the back help keep the bulk of the fly. Lateral scales. Again, these are going to be covered. So even though they're exposed right here, they're going to be covered for the next step. And you can put that section away because this front hook is going to require a little more attention to it. So again, this is the 6/0 PR320 from Ahrex. This is a beast hook. Be careful with this hook, especially this front section. I have stabbed myself more times than I would like. And I have bled from this hook. This one hook in particular. More times than I would like. There we go. That's another good thing about these HMH vices. Look at that. I'm bending the hook. And it's not moving. It's not budging. Same thing with this. Build up a little bit of a base here. Now, this is where the time consuming part comes from. Remember that wire that I told you about at the very, very beginning? We're going to use that now. So, first thing that I do, before I even gauge this and measure this, is I'm going to roughly, I don't know, 3/4 of the way down. I'm going to put a small, now the pliers that I've got, I have jewelry pliers, so these are the rounded pliers specifically for jewelry, and I do prefer them for this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to loop these around to make circles. There we go. It doesn't have to be perfect. It never has to be perfect. It just has to be good enough, especially for something like this. So, I've got a small ring in the back. I've still got the tag end coming off the back, the short section, then I've got the long section up front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to determine where I want that back section. You can manipulate this wire, which is what I love, is that you can slightly bend it to straighten it out if you need to. But I want that, now don't tie it down now, I'm just doing this to help tie it down for now. I want this to sit roughly about there, if not maybe a little bit shorter, in about there. You know, your normal connection, because this being the, you know, a really aggressive, you know, this has a really aggressive curved shank here. I want that to sit right about there, if not maybe a little bit lower. So, from here, like I said, that's roughly about where I want that. So now what I need to do is I need to put here for the hook, for the actual eye of the hook, I need to put a bend in here. It's okay if you don't get it right on the first try. Yeah, boom, perfect. So that is now going to sit right where I want it. Here's the cool thing. This wire goes through the eye. Goes through the eye. So you're not going to worry about this connection in particular ever pulling out, because it won't. This particular wire is also 108 pound. It's not going to break either. Now, this is kind of the confusing part, getting the fly onto here, because it needs to sit like that. And you're going to have to play with this a couple times just to figure out where the fly is going to sit, because if you do it wrong, hey, look at that, it points up. And that's the last thing that you want. So from what I've learned is you're going to come in off the top. And when you swing it around, so it's perfect. Now you've got the perfect connection. Again, I'm just doing this to show. You've got the perfect connection. Right off the bat, it's through the hook, through the eye of the hook. So another benefit is you're not going to worry about fish pulling it. Come on, here we go. And unlike beadlawn, it's not going to break. So how do we get this? Good question. You're going to do the haywire twist. Now, what I've found, just for me, it's a little bit easier to put the loop back in the pliers, and then you're just going to do the haywire twist, which is simply wrapping the wire back over itself. And I do it about 3 times. Now, this wire is not easy to manipulate, so you are going to have to put some oomph into getting this wire to do what you want it to do. Again, it doesn't matter if it's perfect and clean and everything. You just need it to hold. Okay, that one decided to do something a little different, but whatever. And then you're just going to go ahead and trim that off. I'm going to need the big parts for this one. Yeah, be careful. I would wear protective eyewear or something for this, because when that tag piece goes, sometimes I find it 3 days later, like, where it shouldn't be. Like I said, this one wasn't perfect, but it's all you need, because that's not going to pull out, and that's going to sit right where I want it. Oh, sunlight, come on. Now, this giant annoying piece underneath, just cut that in half. and toss it. And there you go. Then just bend that up. And now is when we actually start tying this down and in place. Now for here, I'm going to come back just like I did with the very rear hook to about there. Now, cool thing for this, I could have gone a little bit farther off the back, but this has so much movement, it's ridiculous. Now with this, you may from time to time get a hook stuck or wrapped around. I've only had that happen once. There we go. Now, another thing for this, you don't have to worry about doing those lashing wraps over everything. You know, the multiple back and forth and back and forth. It's literally just tying it down, not cutting your thread. I do this just so I have a base. Another cool thing, you don't need to put super glue on this. This connection is not going to go anywhere. You can put super glue if you want. I don't find it necessary. Not for these, because there's going to be another wire going over this. And that's the other benefit of using a dubbing brush, a wire. You're not going to lose the wire. I mean, they have to really rip through that. But all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to start from right here, and I'm going to do touching turns all the way up. I'm going to get roughly to here, somewhere in here. From there, that's where the dubbing head's going to come in. And I need to swap out the battery. Alright, I do apologize for the last video being blurry. Still trying to figure everything out. So, this is the fly so far. I think it's about 5 or 6 inches. Plenty big enough for a bass. If you wanted to just stop there, you definitely could. And I do that for my bass for pre-spawn. Because I'll put, I'll flip it. I'll put the hook in the front, shank in the back. That way they don't completely inhale it and then get the hooks in their throat. I'd rather the hook be right in the mouth, not in the gills. Okay, but now we're doing the head section here. And as you can see, once everything is done and completed, everything is seamless. It really looks perfect. And they swim so good in the water too. Now, you can fish these on floating lines or intermediates. I do not recommend sinking. If you're using a floating line, definitely you are going to need a fluorocarbon leader or a steel leader. Steel leader is a little heavy though, but fluorocarbon helps to get it down. It helps to pull the head down so it can start swimming, whether it's in a river or a lake. Fluorocarbon intermediate I find works best for these, and then you can fish them a little bit quicker too. You don't have to worry about fishing slow and, you know, that annoyingly slow pace. So, last I left off, put the lateral scales on the edge here, did the connection. This is ready to go. As I mentioned in the last one, it's now time for the big brush. Now, if you didn't have reference for how big this brush was, yeah, like I said, it is all of that, like 9 inches. And I'm going to use every inch of that. So of course, we need the body back here up to the head. So in this short gap, I'm going to do touching turns for every single turn. Again, same thing, 2 in the back, 2 in the front, and I'm going to lash the wire down. And is that necessary? Maybe. Do I do it for reassured securance that that wire is not going to pull out for the dubbing brush? Yes. Because while doing these, I have had brushes pull out while tying them without lashing that down. So you are definitely going to want to tie that down one way or another. Again, you can do super glue for this. I do it for the back because the back, especially for toothy critters, is normally where the rest of it goes. Even though they may attack the head, or if they come in from the back and just completely, you know, if they overtake it, these are still the areas that get hit most. That's what I've seen for my fish, whether it's bass or the muskie. It's either a T-bone, or especially for muskie, you know, pike, you see this all the time. They just come up and inhale the whole thing. Even though I catch most of them on this hook, I still have most of the hits come off the backside. So, same thing, just as before. Touching turns with every single one for this one. I'm not, for this particular one, I'm not going to do any loose wraps, because this is what's building the bulk now. This is the mass, this is the head, this is that front third of the fly. Another good thing to do is come in and just preen and pull all these fibers off to one side. There we go. Go ahead and you can mash them down, pinch them so that way they actually fold into one side. Now, for a dubbing brush tutorial, I can do one if you guys would like on my particular brush for this, but for the most part, it's just going to be, you know, Gunner has a video, Fly Fish Food has videos. Just go ahead and learn from them. And you can do your own brush that way. Now, normally when I'm doing this, I don't have a camera 3 inches away. So you're going to have to bear with me while I work through this. I mentioned this a little while ago. I prefer having a brush for toothy critters, like a dubbing brush, to tying in materials. The reason for that is, one, all of this is synthetic, so even on my 7-weight blue halo, I can throw this fly no problem. Floating line, sinking line. I fished the Colorado River with a friend of mine. Had no issue on an 8-weight throwing these. Now, the river from the bank is quite hard with a fly rod, let alone actually fishing swim baits, which is what I was doing. So unfortunately I didn't get a chance to hit a good striper. Also, the way that those things pull, I'd kind of be afraid to hit one on just an 8-weight. I'd prefer like a 10 or a 12, probably a 10 weight. But even with big swim bait here, Dobbins 806, 30-pound mono, the Alexa 300, the original Alexa 300. I mean, I could see like a 4 or 5 pound fish be handled pretty fine. But those things, those stripers, they fight the current all day, every day. Oh. They're big, they're muscular. They were hard to handle with, you know, big swim bait gear. Kind of afraid to hit one now with a fly rod, at least not in a boat. Because if I had more advantage to get on a boat, oh definitely, I probably would have tried to fish this more than a swim bait. So again, you want the most of the bulk in this front hook. One, it helps slow it down. There's a little bit more mass being a bigger hook, but also more material. So you still have the mass to move, but the material helps to slow it down. Now, like if you watch Gunner's video for the Mega Jerk, he's also using lead on the wire on the hook to help with the flow. A lot of what he's also fishing is in rivers. I know he does fish in lakes sometimes, but I hear him talk about fishing rivers, moving water a little bit more than a lake. And I don't need weight to get down. I don't need weight to really keep it under, because you can move this slow enough how the fish want it to just keep it right in their face. And that's another thing that I need with this, is this fly was designed to be kind of a walking the dog. Oh my god, this is getting terrible. It looks terrible now. It's gonna look amazing when it's finished. But I needed to walk the dog underwater. I needed that really nice side-to-side motion. But I also needed just, you know, kind of like an S-waver, like a glide bait. I just needed to sit in place and not move. Difference between a fly to a resin bait. This can suspend a little bit easier, because all the weight is the fluorocarbon leader and the hooks. Okay, I'm getting towards the front here. I'm going to cut this relatively close. It's always okay to push forward a little bit from the point that you think you want to stop at. Because if I wanted to right now, I could just end the fly right now and not worry about the last like 2 wraps. But I want to utilize every aspect of that. Okay, that's about where I want that wire to end. I think this one's a little short. Yeah, just slightly short. Not a problem. That's definitely not a problem. Because that just helps with the dubbing. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm all hands a lot too. Come on. I really need new flush cutters. There we go. So this one I'm probably going to put 3 stacks of dubbing on. I usually just stick with 2. But again, that all varies for where you end up getting everything. So like for me, I'm a little bit short of where my target was. That just means I'm going to put more dubbing on. And I can do sparser clumps. So, this is the behemoth. This is the Emperor. Now, of course, for just right now, I'm putting everything together, so when I put the clamps on it, it's easier to hold everything down. By the way, this is my favorite color combination, red and white. I don't know what it is about this particular fly, this particular color, but it works. Another thing that's nice to do is understand your materials as well. Like SF is a good material for filling in fibers to help bulk everything out, because I can see that is one bulky mofo. But again, it's synthetic, it's not heavy. And in the water, it doesn't weigh anything. Even out of the water, you give it one good back cast and it rains, because it's all air pockets in here. That's all this is air. It's trapped air. So when you go to make your cast, all that water comes straight out and the air fills it, so it becomes much easier to cast with. And these brushes are also what I use for another fly, which I'll do a tutorial on here in a bit. It's called the Derp. Okay, red dubbing. You can use, for the head, you can use any dubbing that you want. My personal preference, however, is laser dub. I have kind of an issue with bruiser blend. I find it falls out a little easier. Where did I put that clip? But I find it has a tendency to get pulled out a little bit easier, whether by teeth or while you're just going through and cleaning it, just brushing it through. But you need the length. You need fibers that are at least 2 inches long, if not longer. The Vision Predator dub probably would work if you cut it in half. But this is just your simple ripstack. This back one is going to be 30% in the back, 77% in the front. Because with this one, I'm trying to get more length. Not necessarily concerned with distributing it too much around the hook. I mean, you will. It'll do that, but that'll be the second and the third clump here that'll do that more. But just simple rip stacks. Back one, I'm not gonna, like I said, because I'm doing 3 stacks of dubbing here, I'm not gonna make them terribly thick. I do also want the dubbing to stay in the head. Same thing. Try to match it up. Now for these, I need them more. Like I said, these back ones are going to be more for just overall length. And I'll go ahead and clean this out here in a moment. But I've jumped ahead a little bit. I'm right where I would be normally. A little bit thicker clump. This one's going to be 50-50 because I've got the length from that back stack. This one's going to be 50-50 and this one's going to have a little bit more of a veil over it because now I want it to cover. Not entirely. I'm on the side. So I want these two to cover it more. The whole hook around the shank. The front one's going to be the densest because that's going to be where the push is. That's going to be the eyes, the glue, the loom, the flow. Oh no, it'll be thick. Now, something with the UV glues, the UV epoxies. I know those are becoming a giant craze, and don't get me wrong, I love them. I use them all the time, but there's an application for them. There's a time and a place where they shine over a traditional epoxy or super glue or whatever. Compared to normal epoxy, it does set quicker because you tell it when to set. The issue that I have with them is if you don't have the light shine on it, it doesn't cure. You can't get something to cure if the light never touches it. Now, don't worry, this is with all these dubbings, you're going to lose some. But for me, that's just going to go in the next clump here. A lot of times what you lose as well is the under fur, the under fluff, the stuff that was trash anyways. I'm just going to go ahead and do this as an entire veil. Just goes. That way I don't feel like it's going to waste. But another thing that I love for this fly is the placement with the flash and everything. You get the kind of bleeding out, but you get the red. Where can I? There we go. A little bit. You get the red to bleed into the white, and then you get the rest of the flash of the white. To represent gills or to represent whatever. I try to do that with all the flies, whatever the head flash is I try to bleed that into the rest of the body. Okay. Now for the head clumps, the head stacks. Like I said, these are going to be the thickest, these are going to be the most dense, because this is now where I want that water push. This is where the eyes are going, this is where the epoxy is going. So I need right there. Now, I'm putting a lot of pressure on that because this is the one that I cannot have pull out. I've actually pulled so hard I've broken GSP. Now, if you're ever going to use white as a dubbing, please understand that white is a very, what's a good word for that? It fills in and it bulks out very quickly, or the illusion of it bulking out can happen very quickly. So if you've got an even amount of white and another common color, olive, for say a minnow pattern, use 1/2 to 3/4 the size clump of white that you have with the olive or whatever the other base color is. The reason for that, like I said, white can fill up very, very quickly. And for me, I'm not too concerned with having a little bit of a head there with the thread. Oh. Damn it, Ahrex. Told you. Those hooks are nasty, nasty sharp. Bet a good portion of you cringed when you saw that. Alright. That's the head. Putting blood in it. Drawn first blood, and it's not even on a fish. Then again, all my flies have my blood in them. Because these stupid sharp hooks. Good God. Okay. Fly's done. You could fish it just like this. And it won't have the same action. It'll have more of a listful up and down, kind of searching, meandering action. But it'll work. I have had the eyes knocked off of some of my prototypes before I had epoxies, and they swam alright. They swam absolutely fine. Now, because I just put super glue on there, I'm not too concerned with adding extra wraps. I'm also going to put glue on there in a moment anyways as well. So that's the tying part done. Get rid of that. Now, the annoying bit, the eyes. Who else hates putting eyes on a fly? I do. I greatly do. But they make them come alive. Eyes that I use is the Living Skulls 10mm. You can do ice, you can do earth, fire, doesn't matter, wind. I do ice because it's all my Bass Pro Shop sells. And it's just easiest for me to go buy and get them from there. Okay. One of the reasons why I said I use light clumps for, the back and moving up a little bit thicker is I need the resin to bond to itself. I want to start cutting it. I need the tear mender, because that's what I use. Oop. To bond to itself on each side of the eye. in each side of the head to give it a better gluing application, because you don't need the epoxy heads at all. You don't. If you want to keep your eyes in place with toothy critters, it's a must, or some sort of epoxy. Another reason that I don't use just a standard two-part epoxy, the two-part epoxy can get thicker. It can be heavier, and it can weigh the fly down. So instead of having, you know, your side-to-side S-waver kind of swimming action, you end up getting a jigging action more than a side-to-side glide. It's the only reason I hate Termender. Other than that, I absolutely love it. I just hate how it kinks up and binds. But of course, all of us with Termender are already aware of that. Alright, so what I do, first thing, of course, you gotta get the eyes out. Second thing, you gotta figure out where you want the eyes to sit. Normally for me, I'm gonna, ooh, I need more eyes. My last two after this. So I want the eyes to sit, you know, kind of right where the sun's hitting right now. I want them to sit a little bit back from the actual eye of the hook. I want them to sit back a little bit. Son, you were perfect earlier. Why do you have to be like this? So that's part of cleaning it out, but also using the barb mashers is because I'm trying to flatten the head here so I can get the most. Now it's flat. So I can get the most sail life for the head, because I want it to be completely, there's the camera, and I just stabbed myself again. You want it to be completely vertical. Okay, you don't want it off to the side, because then it's going to have that swim where it's off to the side and it's going to want to stick to one side. And you don't want that. Or it's just going to do up and down because there's not enough movement going through both sides. Now, it's just kind of like how the Seville magic swimmers work. The water vortexes on each side is what gives it that quick swimming action. Okay, so for the eyes, usually I just start on the back side here, or opposite me, so closest to the camera at this point. But I'm going to start on the back side for me. Reason for that is this is always the trickiest one. This is the one that I'd rather get out of the way first. So flatten it out. And then I'm going to soak this. I mean, I'm going to absolutely soak it. Because I need a large enough area for the eye to sit. But two, I also wanted to soak through and seep into the other side. Place the eye. I think that's good. Flip it over, same thing. Gonna pull it down. I can actually already see the Termender coming through. Which that's a good thing, because if you can see the Termender coming through, then you have a very secure bond for the eyes. Even if you don't, like I said, even if you don't use a UV resin afterwards, if you just leave the eyes as they are, which I have, they don't come off. I think I got them accurately straight on the first try there. Boom. But there you go, guys. That is the Emperor. And I'll show you other views of this in a moment. Okay, let's see. Where's that? Okay. Because I don't have the original thing for this. I just use a straw. Now what I'm going to do while this is drying is I'm going to babysit it. I'm going to make sure that I don't end up losing the placement of the eyes because they're actually perfect. But as you can see, just from the sun and the glow, that these have an amazing amount of flash to them. And that's something, especially for Pike. Pike love flash. Muskie, I know the thing's right in the way, sorry. Pike love flash. Muskie like a little bit more of a toned down, subtle flash to none at all. This kind of has the best of both worlds. Man, can I talk? I've been talking for 2 hours. So I can't talk anymore. Y'all are tired of listening to my voice. So, as you can see, you can only see the lateral scale in the back half of this fly. It's hard to see it in that front section unless I actually move it. Okay. Just to make sure I'm not losing it. Yeah, don't be afraid if you have to go in and reset the eyes. Once Terramender starts setting though, that's usually it. So that's, I believe that's even. That's mostly even. They're even in front. All right. So the last thing that I'm going to do with this, there's videos for this. Yeah. There's always videos for this. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do the resin for the eyes. Simply, I just use balloon. This is balloon thick. Works absolutely fine. Gives you that nice head. As you can see, I have absolutely soaked the head with Terramender because you can even see it in the back. It works though. It helps to keep that head, it gives the head that very bullet-like style, so it cuts through the water. But the rest of the bulk of the fly, because I mean these flies are quite bulky, and of course I've been playing with it, so it's not as bulky. But these aren't your typical little flies. I mean, they actually have some thickness to them. So it's almost like throwing a swim bait on a fly rod. You've got triple articulated, 2 hooks, because 2 hooks is the legal for Arizona. Can't fish any more than that. Again, white feathers in the back, just to help the bulk. Now the cool thing with this fly, everything is synthetic. Except for the very tail. The first 2 things that you tie on, everything else is synthetic. So one, flies are incredibly durable. Don't have to worry about losing materials. Because that was the problem with some of the original ones I had. I don't even think I have any of the original ones. Somewhere. They're hiding somewhere. Actually, they are hiding. But that's what I used to do with the original ones, is I do the Nicholas Bauer style where you get, you were being annoying. The original ones would have a stack, tail, same thing. but then I would do the flashing material, and then I would do a reverse stack of bucktail, flash over that, and then just repeat that. It makes for, again, a very airy, light fly, but it's all natural materials at that point. I was losing, the first fish ripped off probably half the bucktail. Let's see if I can't find one. There we go. Still on the leader. Still with the teeth. Yep. So, this was the very, very original version. And relatively close. Very light. The difference, as you can see, it has the fish mask. It has the clear mask up front. I think this one, yeah. This has the UV flow over the eyes. But with this one, that's all it is. It's the bucktail cores, 2 hooks, 1 shank in the middle to give it some extra length. The original way that I did it was with craft fur for the head, and the rest of the body being flash and whatnot. So what I had to do with this was just like any kind of standard Bauer pike fly. Was I just tied it Nicholas Bauer style, and that's why it has the bulk appearance. I fished this on my 5 weight, and I could still pull it off, even with 50-pound fluorocarbon leader. The difference that you get with this, though, is I have bucktail as a tail. I know it's hard to see, but there's bucktail in the tail portion here, no feathers. All the flash cores, and that just went all the way up. Now, another issue is that this is a 1/0 B10S, and this is a 2/0, and I'm trying to do muskie with these. Please. All but one fish, which is the 35-incher that I posted, that got the most on Instagram, that got the most likes. That was this one. Wasn't the biggest one. Was the second biggest one, but it came off this one. So and since then, having the bigger hooks helps. Like for a while, on some of these, I was even doing the 5/0 owners. These things are beasts, though. These things absolutely kill. Because I love the large gap. I mean, that gap is huge. Can easily fit finger, thumb through there. The only thing you want to watch out for is these barbs right up front here. Where's that? Got to get a little bit closer. There you go. You can see them. Simple enough with that is just go through and flatten them out. So they're still there. You can see their bumps, but they're gone. That's another good hook. So that's what I tie the darks on, because these are really heavy, and they work well because it's a 5/0 hook, so it works well for a single hook with a shank off the back of it. Okay. So that's mostly ready. But yeah, how I fish this, 7 or 8 weight. Again, the bulk off of it. Oh, that sounds annoying. That sounds very annoying. Let's see if I can still keep it light. There we go. Nice profile. 9 inches. This is the one fly that every time I take it out, kills. This is it. Simple to tie too. Really, really simple to tie. All it is just 3 brushes, dubbing, and the fly. Any questions, please make sure to leave a comment below. My Instagram, I'll also leave that in the description, but my Instagram is at azurbanfishing. You can shoot me a DM. I do have these flies for sale as well. Again, I will do custom of these. I've got a whole bunch of materials coming in, so I'll be able to get a few different color combinations, but on the website I've got just kind of a standard amount. I have to work on that too. It's been a while since I've worked on it, but I have to get that going. Yeah, questions, comments, go ahead, send in as a comment below. Go ahead and find me on my Instagram. And that's how I tie it. Thank you guys. Later.